In 1914, a localized spark ignites in Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria is assassinated. The triggerman is Gavrilo Princip. His act creates the diplomatic catastrophe of the July crisis. But this stays local for only a moment. A rigid web of treaty obligations pulls the entire continent into a massive chain reaction. Millions of men mobilize almost overnight. Austria-Hungary strikes at Serbia, while Germany rapidly invades Belgium and pushes deep into France. The public expects a swift, glorious campaign. Crowds flood the streets to celebrate the mobilization. The superpowers march eagerly into a war of rapid movement, unaware of the technological trap ahead. That momentum crashes into a wall in September 1914 at the First Battle of the Marne. The German advance is shattered by the sheer destructive power of modern artillery. Advancing across open ground is suddenly an impossible death sentence. To survive this staggering firepower, armies abandon movement. They dig deep into the earth, adopting what starts as a desperate survival tactic. This quickly expands. Soon, a static system of trenches stretches across the entire Western Front. Millions of soldiers now face an impossible reality. With both sides immovably dug into the ground, the very concept of an offensive has reached a violent, permanent dead end. By 1915, Allied commanders look for an alternative. If they cannot push through the Western Front, they decide to bypass it entirely by opening a new theater of war. In April, they launch a massive amphibious assault on the Gallipoli Peninsula, aiming to strike the Ottoman Empire. But the campaign quickly devolves into the exact same static nightmare they were trying to escape. The Allies suffer a disastrous defeat and are forced to withdraw by early 1916. With flanking proven impossible, the reality sets in. There is no side door. The deadlock will have to be broken through sheer, blunt force. This leads to the terrifying strategic shift of 1916, attrition, a brutal mathematical calculation where victory means bleeding the enemy's population dry before your own collapses. The environmental reality of this strategy is visible during the battles of Verdun and the Somme. The landscape is reduced to a smoking, desolate ruin. This chart shows the shocking quantitative failure of that strategy. At the Somme, an enormous bar representing over 1 million casualties stacks up against a microscopically thin sliver of territorial gain, just a few miles. Carrying out this equation meant ordering waves of young men to climb out of trenches and march directly into fortified defenses and unbroken barbed wire. Millions of young lives are fed directly into this brutal system, without moving the front line a single meaningful inch. Battlefield tactics alone are never going to break this stalemate. It requires an earthquake in the global geopolitical landscape. The first massive shock hits in 1917. The Bolshevik Revolution overthrows the Russian government, leading Russia to sign an armistice and exit the war entirely. For a brief moment, this gives the Central Powers an opening, freeing up massive amounts of troops from the Eastern Front. But a devastating countershock follows. The United States declares war on Germany, injecting an insurmountable wave of fresh resources and manpower. These external events irreversibly tip the scales. The war's outcome is ultimately decided by global industrial and demographic weight, not trench maneuvers. The arrival of American forces makes continuing the attrition strategy mathematically impossible for an exhausted Germany. Forced to accept reality, Germany signs an armistice agreement. At 11 a.m. on November 11, 1918, the fighting finally stops. The news triggers a wave of visceral relief across the globe as the guns fall silent. World War I turned combat from a tactical game of movement into a horrific industrial machine, one that could only be stopped when the entire world order shifted to turn it off.